As a FNAF fan, have you ever wondered what's next for the FNAF lore? The absolute latest time we have in the timeline right now is with Security Breach Ruin that released back in 2023. And now with FNAF Secret of the Mimic, we are going back to 1979, which tells us that to understand whatever future lore or whatever conclusion this story is gonna get, we will need context on events dating back to 1979. Hell, with the teaser's release, SteelWool even tweeted, "To see the future, sometimes you need to understand the past." But I'm not necessarily going to be spending this video theorizing about what the ending could be. I'm more or less just going to be predicting, I'd say is a better word. Right now, the future of the FNAF lore is really up to two things: whatever Secret of the Mimic entails, and whether or not the tales from the Pizzaplex are canon. Either one not really having an answer just yet without pissing off another half of the community. So instead, let's go over what could happen, what we should expect, and what we, as a community, would like to see go down. First off, I'd like to mention something that Rytoast said back in either one of his theory videos or one of his podcast episodes. I don't really know which one. Pretty much he mentioned that after the Princess Quest ending in Security Breach, what if Gregory, Glamrock Freddy, and Vanessa went to hide out in the FNAF 4 house? Which I feel like is such a good idea, and if SteelWool didn't plan on doing that, then they totally should do it now. It would make for such a good, almost reflection point in the story. The old house where the old Aftons used to reside, now inhabited by the brand new Aftons, now put back together just like they were promised all those years ago. And not only would it be cool from a narrative sense, but we also have a little bit of evidence that could be pointing towards this as one of the possibilities for the future lore. During my boy John FNAF's interview with SteelWool, they said this:
I would say that no location is off limits, right?
Okay.
Everything in the universe, everything in Scott's universe could be revisited.
Right.
At some point.
And plus we know that that house was in walking distance to Fredbear's Family Diner, which is widely theorized to be the same location where the FNAF 6 and Security Breach buildings were built, which, as Rytoast has pointed out, could give us an explanation to why Gregory is able to reach a walkie-talkie signal all the way to down in the little cave system where Cassie is by the end of Ruin. That would make a lot more sense if he was currently in the Afton family house, which would be super close to the Pizzaplex. So yeah, overall a really cool idea that not only would help the narrative of the FNAF lore, but would also make for some sweet fan service for all of us. So with that said, moving on to the next future element of the lore, let's turn our attention to Cassie and where we last left her. Oh shit, yeah, she's still sort of stuck with a robot mimicking a child murderer. It almost baffles me that it's been 2 years since we've had this giant cliffhanger and we still do not know what's going to happen next. Is she dead? Is she not dead? Is she a weird mix of both because this is the FNAF lore and weird shit like that can happen? I actually think she's still alive, because if the Mimic went out of his way to mimic Gregory before dropping the elevator, then he definitely seems to have some sort of ulterior motive. Otherwise, if he only planned to kill her, then why not just drop the elevator and save the hassle of trying to mimic someone in the first place? And yes, it was the Mimic who dropped the elevator. If you don't believe me, check this video right here. The iCard will pop up. There you go. Boom, there's your proof. I especially think Cassie survived because it is well known at this point that the Mimic doesn't like to work alone. He almost likes to control someone and let them do their bidding. That's why we see characters such as Vanny or GGY, who do seem to be under his influence, or at least the influence of his code in some shape or form. Which, now that I'm saying it out loud, made me realize what kind of a cool contrast this is to the past FNAF lore. Look at Sister Location, where we see the human William Afton, who are using a bunch of different animatronics, presumably even with the Mimic's code, to do his bidding, to kill the children for him. Now we almost have the exact opposite. It's a robot, specifically the Mimic or a form of the Mimic, who is manipulating and controlling different humans to do his bidding and to kill kids. I honestly am wondering whether this was intentional or not by Scott. Alright, little narrative rabbit hole aside, considering that the Mimic usually does like a partner in crime of sorts, a Vanny or a GGY equivalent to help him in his work, it really seems like Cassie is going to be his next servant. Not only do we see her constantly using a Vanny mask throughout the game, but also this last final mimic of Gregory before dropping the elevator on her could have been his way of trying to get her to hate Gregory, to want to go out and kill Gregory, therefore cementing her as our next Vanny. This could especially be the case considering that Scott has openly said he feels like Vanny was wasted potential and would like to find a way to bring her back.
I've always really liked Vanny as a character. I don't think that Vanny was utilized to her fullest potential, and so hopefully we'll see another opportunity for Vanny to return as well. We'll see.
It seems like with the position Cassie's in the lore right now, Scott may just have the perfect opportunity to bring back Vanny in a more fulfilling way this time around. But this is a prediction video after all, so let's speculate beyond that. If, for the sake of argument, Scott does put Cassie through a bit of a villain arc, how will she come out on the other side? Will she die? Will she turn good again? What's gonna happen? Well, I think it's safe to say that Gregory wouldn't straight up kill her, because we gotta keep in mind Cassie was one of Gregory's best friends, and he already went through all the trouble of trying to rescue her down whenever she visited the Mimic, so we know he does care for her. And if in the canon route he went out of his way to save Vanny, which based on the context of the game was a person he knew absolutely nothing about, then of course he would go out of his way to save his best friend as well. But I do think something important will come from Cassie's reign as Vanny. Even if she is saved and everything's fine in the end, there must be something that happens that impacts the wider lore, because otherwise this is essentially just filler stuff. What would be the point of adding a third servant to the Mimic / Glitch Trap if there wasn't going to be anything new that comes out of it? Just something that helps push the story forward in whatever which way direction it may be going. What this specific change may be, I'm not fully sure yet. We actually probably still have a long while before that's even a concern. I mean, Scott did say that he's already working on a different project with SteelWool besides Secret of the Mimic, but we don't know when exactly this brand new game will come out. After all, if Secret of the Mimic was in production technically since 2022, then who the fuck really knows when we're gonna get this new game with Cassie as our new villain. But speaking of which, what do we think will be featured in this brand new game after Secret of the Mimic? Well, we've already talked about Gregory and the gang using the Afton house as their sort of home base, and Cassie reappearing as a new villain, but that still leaves tons of big questions, such as where will the game specifically take place? A brand new Pizzaplex? The same old underground area of the Pizzaplex? Or hell, maybe not even a Pizzaplex at all? Well, let's narrow it down a bit by going over the most likely options. First things first, a security breach 2. The idea of a security breach 2 could take place underneath the main Pizzaplex. After all, it would make sense that if Gregory got cut off from hearing Cassie at the end of Ruin, there's a chance that he would go back to either save Cassie or to make sure that the Mimic doesn't escape. Now, this premise alone doesn't sound too impossible, and there's definitely plenty of questions left down there that could be heavily more explored. But if we go back down there again, then that would make it the third time that we see this setting, which could definitely be way too repetitive for Scott or SteelWool's taste. Which, if it is, then there's always the other option. Option number 2, a modern Fall Fest game. It is absolutely no secret at this point that the Fall Fest is being teased like a motherfucker. Both Fazbear Entertainment and the Mimic definitely seem to have origins tied to the Fall Fest. And one very key aspect of storytelling, especially when you're trying to get towards the end of a story, is to connect it to the beginning of your story. Which it seems like introducing Fall Fest as this thing that was way earlier than any of the Freddy's restaurants, this is Scott and SteelWool's way of bringing the ending of their franchise closer and tied to their beginnings. So it actually makes a lot of sense from a creative perspective why they would go back to Fall Fest. But as for what specifically may be going down, well, it may be a bit too early to tell. All that I know is whatever it is, I'm real excited for it. You gotta keep in mind that FNAF 6 sort of ended like the Afton saga of the FNAF lore in one of the dopest ways possible. Henry's speech is damn near one of the most iconic speeches in gaming. Scott wrote one hell of an ending to that saga, and if that's how that saga went down, then I can only imagine what the hell kind of dope ass shit Scott and SteelWool will be able to add this time around to end off the Mimic storyline. I've always really liked the way SteelWool approaches these games. They continuously pay homage and respect to the past lore while still not being afraid to create their own tone, their own unique feel. Of course, nothing against Scott and how he made the games, but there truly is something special with how SteelWool is forming this brand new story, and I can't wait to see how it continues to unfold.
visiting, and we hope you enjoyed the show.
It needs you. She needs you.
Gregory! Gregory, you okay?
Your special day. I remember your special day.
You're not Gregory. What are you?
You were never supposed to go to the Pizza Plex. That thing